Petra Sörling of Sweden and Khalil Al-Mohannadi of Qatar were once close allies. In fact, they even worked together to oust a former ITTF president, Thomas Weikart. But in 2025, they found themselves standing against each other at the ITTF presidential elections held in Doha at the AGM. Petra Sörling would officially be victorious, 104 votes to 102. But within minutes of the result being announced, there was chaos. The result was disputed. Questions about the number of delegates at the roll call. A constitutional crisis has emerged, and accusations of bribery and corruption have been fired in all directions. And now, a court case. Khalil Al-Mohannadi has taken an appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So, what does it all mean for table tennis? What does it all mean for average table tennis fans like me and you? Well, in this video, I'm going to try and unpack it all, and there is a lot to unpack. It's a slightly confusing situation. Hard to know what to make of it all, but hopefully I will make some sense, and at least you'll be a little bit more enlightened about the situation that's happening at the ITTF. Before I get to that fateful May 2025 presidential election, I think it would be important to start with a little bit of background on our two presidential candidates. First up, we've got Petra Sörling, born in Sweden, has a promising junior table tennis career, at least at the national level in Sweden. Becomes a coach in the 90s, gets a position with the Swedish Table Tennis Association, the European Table Tennis Union. Eventually, she's elected to the executive board of the ITTF in 2009 and becomes the ITTF's vice president of finance in 2013. This is all at the same time as she's developing a business and corporate career, seems like mostly in real estate, and she still is the CEO of a public-private real estate venture in the city of Malmö in Sweden. Of course, her big achievement, though, is getting elected as the first female president of the ITTF in 2021. An impressive achievement. She's not without her detractors. There's plenty of people who've criticised her leadership, but there hasn't been too much controversy surrounding her personal life, not too much personal scandal surrounding her role at the ITTF or her career. Well, the same definitely can't be said for Mr. Khalil Al-Mohannadi. Controversy has followed that man like a bad smell for decades now. Mr. Khalil Al-Mohannadi. So he's been involved in Qatari table tennis in one form or another since at least the 1990s. In some biographies, he is listed as being the former head coach of the national side, but he definitely has been president of the Qatari Table Tennis Association since 1995. In 1997, he was elected to the board of directors of the ITTF, and in 2005, he was elected as deputy president of the ITTF. But it was here in 2005 that Khalil Al-Mohannadi had his first major scandal, his first major controversy. So the 2005 elections held in Shanghai were marred by rumours of envelopes stuffed with cash, expenses being paid for on flights and hotels by the Qatari Table Tennis Association, all in order to secure votes for Mr. Khalil Al-Mohannadi. And those rumours ultimately were taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, where it was ruled that indeed bribery had taken place and it had affected the results of the elections. So those elections in 2005 were voided, and you would think that would be it for Mr. Khalil Al-Mohannadi. He lost his position as the ITTF deputy president in controversial circumstances, with major accusations of bribery taking place. Apparently that didn't make Khalil Al-Mohannadi too toxic, and in 2009 he was elected back to the ITTF executive board. This was of course the year that Petra Sörling also joined the ITTF. From 2009 onwards, Khalil Al-Mohannadi and Petra Sörling's careers at the ITTF would very much be linked. They'd supported Thomas Weikart in his takeover of the presidency in 2014 and his election in 2017. But by 2020, during the COVID pandemic, they were releasing joint statements that essentially they had no confidence in the leadership of Thomas Weikert. Thomas Weikert responded in 2021 by suspending Khalil Al-Mohannadi. He made a number of accusations. One of those actually came from the Swiss Table Tennis Association, led by Georg Silberschmidt. Remember the name, it will be important later. They claimed that Khalil Al-Mohannadi had deals with Jula, the table tennis equipment company, with his own private company in Qatar, that essentially went against the ITTF constitution. Anyways, the executive board of the ITTF, obviously front and centre was Petra Sörling, came out in support of Khalil Al-Mohannadi, and Khalil Al-Mohannadi was restored as deputy president. There would be an internal investigation by the ITTF Integrity Unit, which cleared Khalil Al-Mohannadi of all wrongdoing, and the Swiss Table Tennis Association released an unreserved apology, and essentially washing their hands of Georg Silberschmidt, who had by that stage moved on. But Thomas Weikert's leadership was now in ruin, and he pulled out of the 2021 elections, leaving the way for Petra Sörling, with the full backing of Khalil Al-Mohannadi, to take over the presidency. So she was elected in 2021, and Khalil Al-Mohannadi and Petra Sörling were now at the top of the ITTF, reading from the same page, and everything seemed hunky-dory between the two of them. Let's fast forward to 2025, and the Table Tennis World Championships are being held in Doha, in Qatar, and on the table things are going pretty well. Some fantastic matches, a great run by Ugo Calderano, Wang Chuqin wins his first world title, and Sung Ying Sha once again proves how fantastic she is. But off the table, it's the AGM, and things are getting messy pretty early on. So Georg Silberschmidt, remember the name? He was the one who made accusations against Khalil Al-Mohannadi back in 2021. And this time he's in the capacity of representing the United Table Tennis Players Association. The association had been set up earlier in 2025, basically to give a voice to professional table tennis players in the decision making of the ITTF. Some of its founding members include Quadri Aruna, Dmitry Ovcharov and Ugo Calderano, some of the game's best. So Georg Silberschmidt is handing out leaflets to delegates explaining what the United Table Tennis Players Association is, when he finds himself surrounded by 20 security guards. He is subsequently arrested and detained, and facing charges that could result in up to 9 years of prison time. Fortunately, ambassadors and delegates were able to get involved. Apparently Petra Sörling herself got involved, and Georg Silberschmidt was eventually released and deported back to Switzerland. But that's not where the controversy ended at the 2025 ITTF AGM. The 2025 ITTF presidential election. Khalil Al-Mohannadi against Petra Sörling, the two former allies. But in the days leading up to the election, articles were published by the New York Times and in the Inquisitor, which once again raised the ugly subject of bribery. The finger of accusation was once again pointed squarely at the Qatari Table Tennis Association. Reportedly, a number of delegates in the ITTF had raised their concerns with the ITTF Integrity Unit, and the ITTF Integrity Unit did indeed confirm it was investigating accusations of bribery and corruption around the presidential elections, although it didn't specifically name the Qatari Table Tennis Association. This caused a furore amongst Khalil Al-Mohannadi's supporters, with them themselves questioning the integrity of the ITTF Integrity Unit, accusing it of leaking information to the press, something the ITTF Integrity Unit's head, Kevin Carpenter, has denied fervently. So, before the ITTF election had even taken place, its integrity was being called into question from both sides. So, under the cloud of disintegrity, the election takes place, and Petra Sörling is declared the victor. She will be the president for the next 4 years. It was a close run thing, 104 votes to 102. But within minutes of the election result being declared, there were protests in the hall. One by one, delegates took to the microphone to question the integrity of the vote.
Before you said it's 16 online, yeah? 16 online. How it's come 21 now?
In the moment they are connected.
Yes, it's 16 only. Now it's 21.
16,
Why?
not 21. So from the beginning,
Starting with 16.
It's 16, not 21.
Not 21.
You said there is 16 vote online.
Online towards 16.
Yeah.
Back to
Their gripe centres around the number of online votes. So the election was conducted in a hybrid manner, a mixture of those delegates present voting in paper and further votes being conducted online. At the time of the roll call, there were 16 delegates ready to vote online, but once the result was declared, 21 votes had been counted through the online voting system. Khalil Al-Mohannadi supporters subjected the remaining ITTF board members, George Simmons and Raul Kalin, to a barrage of accusations and questions, with many of them actually declaring that Khalil Al-Mohannadi is the true legitimate president. Others were calling for a re-election at that moment.
Transparency, we will wait, okay? If not, we have to restart the election for physically only, and you will see the number.
És azt gondolom, hogy ha az eredményre nézünk, akkor egyértelmű az Asztalitér Szövetségnek ki az elnöke, Mr. Khalil.
And if we look at the result, it's quite obvious that Mr. Khalil is the president of the ITTF.
Now, where was Petra Sörling all of this time? Apparently, if reports are to be believed, she was seeking the help of Swedish embassy officials to escort her away from the AGM, apparently fearing for her own personal safety. Now, the table tennis 11 guys, they were in the room representing Estonia, and they said that whilst it was a highly emotional atmosphere in the room, they didn't feel it to be particularly threatening, and they didn't believe that they would likely be a threat to personal safety. But perhaps Petra Sörling had on her mind the arrest of Georg Silberschmidt just a few days earlier. Anyways, after about an hour of heated discussion, to say the least, the AGM was ultimately suspended. Further elections for vice presidents and deputy presidents as well were also suspended. Khalil Al-Mohannadi came out right away with a statement stating that he believed the election was unconstitutional, and the ITTF a few days later as well released a statement of his own refuting those claims, stating that the election was exactly in line with the ITTF's own constitution. Well, of course, what happened next? Khalil Al-Mohannadi has gone to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and that's where we're at right now. So, what should we make of it all? Whose side should we be on as table tennis fans? Well, from a personal perspective, I find it fascinating, for one. Sports and politics colliding, these Machiavellian characters fighting it out to become the next president, and the power, or so be it, at least in table tennis, that is granted by having a position like the president of the ITTF. Some of you might say this is really, really boring. I get that. It is a lot of technical stuff about, roles and elections. Anyways, whose side should we be on? Personally, I find it remarkable that Khalil Al-Mohannadi is anywhere near the ITTF presidency with his history and the accusations of bribery that were around him back in 2005 and 2006. That really should have been the end of it. But does that mean Petra Sörling is innocent in all this? No. Ultimately, she was a close ally of Khalil Al-Mohannadi for nigh on a decade during her vice presidency, and she has to take some responsibility for Khalil Al-Mohannadi being in the position he is, the fact he could even challenge for the ITTF presidency. So Petra Sörling, whether she's just naive or whether she knows exactly who Khalil Al-Mohannadi is and has used his money or the money that Qatar has for her own success, I don't know. Maybe I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, but Certainly, she's not an innocent party in this. Anyways, what other implications are of this chaos at the ITTF? Well, it's not a good look, first up. The ITTF is coming into its centenary year, 100 years of the ITTF. We're going to London next year, 100 years since the 1926 World Championships. It's not a good look going into that centenary year, having all this infighting. It's not a good look when it comes to things like the IOC. Certainly, the IOC, the Olympic Committee, doesn't view this kind of shit favourably. And who knows, if it doesn't get sorted soon, it could have an impact on table tennis's inclusion in future Olympics. Perhaps unlikely, but it's something to bear in mind. Perhaps, for me, one of the biggest things about, biggest issues to consider is Khalil Al-Mohannadi is an incredibly Machiavellian figure, it appears to me, and he will do anything to get where he wants to be, including arresting opponents, or at least requesting that opponents are arrested, in the case of Georg Silberschmidt. And Georg Silberschmidt's involvement in the United Table Tennis Players Association is important at this time. The United Table Tennis Players Association is for me, a really vital body that's been set up, because one of the big crises for me in world table tennis I see right now is the fact that playing in world table tennis is really expensive, and in fact prohibitive to many players, particularly if they're not from one of the major table tennis playing nations. Something Quadri Aruna has spoken about many times. If you come from a country where you don't have very much support from your federation, it costs a hell of a lot to play in tournaments, and if you don't win, you end up losing money. And what is the result of that? The best players in the world, regardless of what country they're from, may not be able to compete. Yes, we'll still see the Chinese, the Japanese, the German players, but we won't see incredible talents from Africa or South America, simply because they won't have the opportunity. And the United Table Tennis Players Association it's a big deal. Anyways, I've kind of ranted on for too long. We're going to see what happens. I don't really know what happens with the Court of Arbitration for Sport. I don't know how long these things take. Probably months, I'm assuming. I don't think there's going to be an easy answer. I suspect Khalil Al-Mohannadi will probably lose his case, but you never know. He's probably got very expensive lawyers. That's certainly what happened in 2021. He had some very expensive lawyers. Right, I'm definitely rambling on too much, but the Inquisitor, Jens Weinreich, I think is how his name is pronounced. He's written some excellent articles on this. He writes about sports and politics. So really enjoyed his articles. And he did actually respond to one of my emails. I didn't follow it up, but thanks to him for doing that. Yeah, I'm going to follow this closely, and that's it for now. Interesting stuff. I hope you agree. If you disagree with anything I've said, please let me know. I've probably got a lot of this wrong. It's very complicated. Lots of layers, lots of webs, big webs. All right, cheers, bye.